time. Evolution is explained by the passage of time and the adaptation of an organism to its environment. Survival of the fittest produces genetic traits that help the animal to thrive and reproduce, as animals without those traits find themselves unable to survive and thus do not pass their genes on to the next generation. The giraffe is a prime example of evolution. Over millions of years and thousands of generations, the giraffes with longer necks were able to reach food higher in trees. And given their competitive advantage over other giraffes, they were better fed, stronger, and more able to avoid predators and find a mate, passing on their genes to the next generation, the result being what we see today. The giraffe, by its lofty stature, much elongated neck, forelegs, head, and tongue, has its whole frame beautifully adapted for browsing on the higher branches of trees. It can thus obtain food beyond the reach of the other ungulata or hoofed animals inhabiting the same country. Charles Darwin, Origin of Species. But does genetic transmission actually account for everything we see in the giraffe today? Darwin attempted to explain the giraffe's long neck, but the implications of the size of the giraffe's neck have yet to be explained by evolution even to this day. An adult giraffe's neck is usually around 6 feet long. In order to get blood from its heart to its brain, it takes an incredible amount of blood pressure. A giraffe's heart weighs 24 pounds. This massive pump needs to get blood to the giraffe's brain not only when it is eating, but when it is drinking as well. And for the giraffe, this means when it leans its head down to the water. As the giraffe bends down to drink, gravity increases the blood pressure downward towards its head enough that it should burst the blood vessels of the brain. This, of course, does not happen every time the giraffe bends down to take a drink. What does happen? The giraffe bends down and drinks from the water without knowing that valves in the arteries of its neck close in order to lower the pressure on blood vessels in the brain. The most important question, then, is why does this happen? Evolution states that something doesn't evolve unless a need exists. This theory is insufficient, however, as the need would only exist after the giraffe's brain hemorrhages while bending down for a drink. No giraffe would be able to survive long enough to reproduce and evolve a sufficient response to this problem. As the giraffe bends his head down for a drink, valves in the arteries in its neck begin to close. Blood beyond the last valve continues moving toward the brain, but instead of passing at high speed and pressing into the brain and damaging or destroying it, that last pump is pushed under the brain into a group of vessels similar to a sponge. The brain is preserved and the powerful surge of oxygenated blood gently expands the sponge beneath it. In this solution, however, another problem arises. If the giraffe quickly raises its head to avoid a predator, for example, without something to compensate for the reduced blood flow, it would pass out. But instead, as it begins to raise its head, the arterial valves open. The sponge squeezes its oxygenated blood into the brain. The veins going down the neck contain some valves which close to help level out the blood pressure, and the giraffe can quickly be erect and running without passing out. Unfortunately for Darwin's theory, sheer coincidence and passing of dominant genetic traits alone doesn't account for the abnormalities in the giraffe. Only creative, intelligent design can begin to describe why giraffes survive with their physical features. So when you next look at a giraffe, take solace in the fact that it did not come into being through chance. It was consciously, purposely, and deliberately created, and so were you.